This is the Waupaca Area School District Board of Education meeting.
Will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that, I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, let the record reflect that all members of the board are present. We'll move on to item 4 of the agenda, which would be approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 5, election results and the oaths of office.
So this past April 4th was Election Day, and I would like to extend congratulations to Stephen Johnson, incumbent, Patrick Fair, incumbent, and Dimitri Martin.
Non-incumbent.
Not incumbent, yes. Dimitri Martin received approximately 1,400 votes, which was the third highest number of votes. And so Mr. Martin will be filling the remainder of Connie Baldwin's term. And we are very appreciative for you to step forward and offer such service to the board and the district.
Thank you.
At this time, I would ask our 3 candidates to please stand and raise their right arm and take the oath of office. I state your name.
I, Stephen Johnson,
Have been duly elected to the office
have been duly elected to the office
of the School District of Waupaca Board of Education.
of the School District of Waupaca Board of Education.
Affirm that I will support the Constitution
Affirm that I will support the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution of Wisconsin,
of the United States and the Constitution of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
of said office to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Stephen. Congratulations.
If I could have each one of the candidates please give us their signature on the appropriate document. Dimitri, I think you're here.
Dimitri.
This is Dimitri's
Oops, I'm sorry.
hand.
Here's Dimitri's.
Oh, this is mine?
Yep. And then this is Mr. Baker's.
I state your name. Sign it.
Today is the 11th, yes. Very good. And the rest is for the notary. Yep. And our notary is right down there. So.
Make sure that you take the one that's got your name on it.
And the ring.
And we get to keep the pen, I think. I don't know, I'm trying to think who that is. Who gave you these nice pens?
You may keep it if you'd like as a souvenir.
Fun.
Heck,
These.
rarely is nice.
Okay, with that, we'll move to public comment and/or a run for the chair. No public comment at this time. We'll move on to the minutes of the March 14th, 2017 regular board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to communications. Mr. Neal?
April 17th through the 21st, or next week, is Tornado Awareness Week. As such, the buildings around the district will have a tornado drill. The National History Bee is actually part of my district administrator's report, so I'll skip directly to that item. Logan Jansen, 6th grade student at Waupaca Middle School, competed in the State History Bee in Milwaukee on Thursday, March 23rd. Logan finished as one of the top 8 finalists, which qualifies him to move on to the National History Bee in Atlanta, Georgia. So Logan will be heading down to Atlanta June 1st through the 4th. Congratulations to Logan. The Waupaca High School forensic team finished 3rd at the state competition at the UW-Whitewater campus on April 1st. Dakota Marlega won 2nd place honors in Student Congress, 5th in oral interpretation, and also walked away with a $1,000 WFCA scholarship.
Good for her.
Other top finishers after 5 rounds of competition were Hayden Walkush in informative speaking, Laura Saunders and Callista Rivai in duo interpretation, and Christian Bump in oral interpretation. Semifinalists included Riley McKibben and Anna Lehman. Our Waupaca Mighty Milers participated in the New York Roadrunner Miles for Books promotion in the month of March. The WLC crew logged enough miles to earn $125 in free books for the school, so nice job to them. And then finally, our hashtag Waupaca Way 2K30 design team has concluded its work and is poised for a successful community conversation beginning next Thursday evening, April 20th, from 5 to 9 p.m. at the Waupaca High School.
Do you have a preliminary count?
We're in the 60s right now, but we know that there are individuals who have indicated that they will be attending but have not RSVP'd at this time.
And at this point, all of the board members on the list are indicated as yes, so if that's not possible.
I'm
just let
out
us
of
know.
town.
You're out of town.
So I'm sorry I won't be able to make it.
And we do have postings appropriate.
Yes, it is posted.
Okay, very good. Your report on forensics, we know every year we have a challenge with scheduling graduation because of where the forensics students may be going. I knew a couple of the names, but how many were the seniors? Do you have a feel for that?
I know Dakota is a senior. I'm not sure how many other of the students are. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right, with that, any questions for the administrator's report?
Just a comment, as long as we're just doing it miscellaneous. Somebody came in, I don't know if the other board members noticed, somebody came in and replaced all of our artwork.
Oh, yes.
When did they do that?
That actually happened a couple of weeks ago. We've had a meeting since then.
Oh,
so,
okay, I wasn't
yeah.
here for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah.
Nice to look at some
Real
other good
talent,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to board monitoring. MTSS audit results.
Yes. So at your place, you will find a hard copy of a very lengthy and detailed report. And what I am going to share with you right now is an abridged version in the form of this PowerPoint. So this is our multi-tiered system of support program evaluation that we began at the beginning of the year. And as the year progressed, we completed the evaluation with the assistance of a couple of consultants, one from University of Minnesota and one from LSU. Down here at the bottom, you will see the concept map that I shared with the board and with our staff early in my transition into the district. It's our multi-tiered system of support model. It's the umbrella, if you will. So our agenda is to discuss program evaluation questions, review the data, talk about the recommendations, the results, and your questions. And we've got 2 number 3s there. So we've got 3 key ideas here. Effective instruction and intervention programs, meaningful assessment of student performance, and collaborative teams using data to make instructional decisions. These are 3 of the most basic tenets of a multi-tiered system of support. So, as far as program evaluation questions.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
when we look at this in total, are we looking at the same sort of focus of the impact of the tiered program for all levels?
That's an excellent question. It's actually one of the program evaluation questions, Pat. So the short answer is no. What we do at the elementary school is not the same as what we do at the middle school, is not the same by far what happens at the high school. It looks different at each building and each developmental level. Part of that is because the resources that were originally created for a multi-tiered system of support were designed around disability identification. Multi-tiered system of support has become much more than just a means to identify students with a learning disability. It's now more of a philosophy to keep kids out of special education than the pathway in. Because the majority of our special education referrals, however, come from elementary age students, you can understand why the system was created to be heavy in resources at the elementary level and lighter as students progress through the grades. So program evaluation question number one was, to what extent are all buildings in the school district implementing an aligned multi-tiered system of support? To what extent do teachers support implementation of MTSS? How is implementation of MTSS impacting student achievement? And then finally, what is the impact of MTSS on special education child count? So let's talk a little bit about the data that was generated through the evaluation. The first piece was interviews. So you can survey staff members, you can survey a population, and you can glean a lot of information from surveys. But there's no real replacement for sitting down across the table from someone and having a dialogue with them and talking face to face. So interviews were a portion of this process. So there was a team of educators identified at each building that were identified as the lead teachers who were going to be a part of the interview process. Then there was also a survey component. The surveys went out to all staff members. All of our teachers had an opportunity to complete the survey. There were two different surveys. There was one survey that was more of a general surface survey, and then there is more of a deep dive survey, and they did produce different data points. And then finally, there was what we refer to as extant data. That's data that we have existing in the district already. It's not data that was generated specifically for this report. Child count information, for example. Referral rates would be another example. Some of the data that was reviewed. So there is a response to intervention essential components worksheet and a response to intervention fidelity of implementation rubric. Those were the structured interviews that were used in the interview portion of the process. And as I mentioned, there were two surveys, an RTI implementation and an effective practices survey. And then finally, as I just referenced, some of the data that was considered was discipline data, learning disability evaluation reports, of course, student achievement data, and special education child count data. During the interviews, there was a scoring rubric that was applied. So when they talked about the assessments and database decision-making, multi-level instruction, infrastructure and support mechanisms, and fidelity and intervention, a Likert scale was applied. And a score of 1 meant that the topic was not in place across the district, whereas a score of 3 was partial implementation, and a score of 5 meant that the district had achieved full implementation. And obviously then you can surmise that a 2 and a 4 were somewhere in between there. So if we talk a little bit about the results, Some of the strengths that were identified is that we have a very positive school culture, presenting in all buildings a high level of professionalism, mutual respect, and commitment to teaching. One of the evaluators commented that if I needed to identify a model school district for implementation of PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, or really what we refer to as the Waupaca Way, they would send districts to Waupaca. We have achieved what many districts set out to do, and that takes them years to achieve. So hats off to the previous administrators that have worked long and hard at implementing the Waupaca Way and really driving that initiative right into the community itself. So PBIS, abundantly evident. School level leadership was rated high by the majority of educators. Scheduling time for interventions at the elementary and middle school was denoted as a strength, and resources. For example, funds and programs were adequately allocated to support the MTSS effort. The evaluators commented that many times they'll go into districts and they'll hear directly from staff members that the weight of an unfunded mandate is very heavy upon them, and that they feel as if they don't have the resources that they need to be able to perform at the level that's expected by this is really a federal initiative. So that was not a message that was put forward by our staff, and that is certainly characterized here as a strength.
Greg, can
Yes.
you define school level leadership?
Sure. Principals, data teams, our PBIS coaches, all fall into that category. So, to question one, to what extent are all buildings in the school district implementing an aligned MTSS framework? The academic component of the multi-tiered system of support framework is partially implemented. The elementary buildings are at a higher level, as we would expect. Again, that definitely aligns with how our special education referrals track. And the high school is at a beginning level of implementation. And so if you refer, once again, as I did a couple of moments ago, to that Likert scale of 1, 3, 5, you can see here the ratings by building and by district. I'm going to start back here with fidelity and evaluation. You can see that that's an area that we need to work on as a district and at individual buildings. That's not in place. Infrastructure is partially in place. Multi-level instruction, well, at the elementary and middle school, it's partially in place, but at the high school, it's only just beginning. And so when you average those, then you can see that the district scores in the partial category again.
What is the rating scale, 1 to what?
1 to 5.
Okay.
Yep, right here.
Okay.
So 1, not in place, 3, partially, and 5, full implementation.
What makes the fidelity and evaluation, even for the elementary, which has been involved for quite a long time, why are we so far lagging, if that's the right word?
You know, that's a good question. Fidelity and evaluation should really be the base. That should be where we start. How do we know that what we say we're going to measure is actually what we're going to measure? How do we know that the intervention, so let me give you a breakdown here real quick. At the elementary level, for example, we are screening our students 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And reading is obviously an area that we want to screen students. We screen them in the area of fluency, and we screen them also for comprehension. If our data about how that student is performing in the area of reading is misinterpreted by the teacher, and they design an intervention that's going to impact fluency, but the need area is comprehension, and that mistake happens frequently through no fault of our educators, you do not have fidelity, okay? So that's one example of why we should be starting with the conversation around fidelity. and evaluation and building from there. But that's not the way that it typically works, and this is a very typical distribution by school districts in the state. So this doesn't mean that we're uncommon by any means.
Does that mean, though, that in the future, as we move forward, that would be the area of emphasis?
Absolutely, yeah. So fidelity and evaluation, that's absolutely an area that we're going to be focusing on in the future. Yeah. All of these areas are important and make for a sound multi-tiered system of support, but obviously we know that this is an area of weakness for us right now. Yeah.
Is it unusual that the score for assessments would be relatively high and the fidelity?
Not really, that's what we do well.
Oh.
I mean, we have had a lot of practice assessing, and actually there's a lot of big business behind assessments. ProEd, for example, all of the big curriculum businesses, the testing corporations, that's where they make their money in public education, is by selling assessments. Curriculum many times will have assessments built right into it now when you purchase it. So assessments is an area that typically comes up higher in terms of implementation for that very reason, because there's a lot of resources out there for us. The information around evaluation and fidelity, that's local level. So they can't package that and sell that to a district. That's something that has to be developed.
Thank you.
So in terms of tiered levels of support here, you can see that the highest level of implementation across the district is the elementary, right here with 3.7. Just a quick word about the different levels. If we were to apply statistics to our student population, we would expect that 80% of our student population is going to be successful with Tier 1. Tier 1 is really your core curriculum. That's what every student should be getting. Okay? About 10 to 15% of our students are not going to be successful with the core curriculum, and they're going to need an intervention over and above the core curriculum. That's where Tier 2 comes in. Okay? Tier 3 is going to be reserved for that 1 to 4% of the population that's probably going to track towards a special education referral. A multi-tiered system of support in its original intent was designed to identify students who have a learning disability by documenting their failed response to an intervention. The way that we used to identify them is we would give them an IQ test, we'd give them an achievement test, and if there was a discrepancy between those two assessments, we'd say it must be a learning disability. Well, that system was flawed, and so the federal government said, no, we think there's a better way, and they came up with something called response to intervention. Response to intervention is the academic application of a multi-tiered system of support. PBIS is the behavioral application to a multi-tiered system of support. So you can see some more information there as it applies to Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. You can see that Tier 3 virtually non-existent other than special education services. I'll just draw your attention to this number right here. We had 8 students that were identified at Tier 3 across the district. For a district our size, it should be about 114. So we've got some work, and that again, Pat, speaks to that fidelity piece. You've got a fair amount of information here. Secondary schools obviously need the most amount of assistance. Problem-solving teams need to identify a problem-solving model that they use to be able to guide those conversations at the building level. Question number 1 really has the most amount of data, so bear with me for another slide or two. While district multi-tiered system of support and guidance does exist, it's likely not comprehensive enough. So one of the things that we discussed last week as a group of administrators and building principals was to formulate a district level team. So our principals and Ms. Marcon, Julie Iden, Rhonda Hare, next year it'll be our new directors of teaching and learning, will all form that district level team that will provide guidance then to our building level teams. Fidelity of implementation is not really assessed on a consistent basis, so that's something that we need to be able to measure. We should be able to tell at any point in time whether or not 80% of our student population is being successful with the core curriculum. Currently, we don't have that ability as we should. And then finally, multi-tiered system of support implementation or action plans do not exist at the district or individual school level. So that'll be another goal for us as a district and individual buildings next year. Getting at question number 2, to what extent do teachers support implementation? Well, the district does not have a tool to describe the essential components of a multi-tiered system of support. And that should be deleted right there. To parents, I can tell you that as soon as this report was shared with the building principals, they all sifted through the information and grabbed on to the recommendations that applied to their buildings. And I can tell you that John Ersbaumer has already created a brochure for parents, and he has shared that with the other building principals as a resource. Staff reported that more professional development and coaching are needed. That's not a surprise. That's part of our professional development plan for next year. And then finally, staff are unaware of a district plan to accelerate learning for all at-risk students. So in other words, if we screen our students in the fall and we see that Greg is 6 months behind his peer group, we need to be able to design an intervention that's going to accelerate Greg with growth that's more than what his peers are going to continue to move forward with. Because otherwise, Greg is always going to have that 6-month lag. So we need Greg to make 12 months worth of growth in only 6 months period of time. Good luck, Greg. Question number 3, how is implementation of multi-tiered system of support framework impacting student achievement? You can see how we, as the school district of Waupaca, compared to the state, we're slightly above average in achievement for language arts and math. However, student growth in English language arts is half of the growth rate, the state average, and slightly below in math. So that's this score right here. 15 of 50. That means that our students are growing at a much slower rate compared to the rest of the state. So as we begin to look at that student achievement data and we watch the state data begin to pull away from us, that's the effect of that rate of improvement, that growth compared to the state. So obviously that's something that we are targeting next year in terms of professional development. Yes?
How many years does that measure? Is that?
That's a 3-year average, yeah. Waupaca is similar to state in the area of closing the gaps. You can see the data right there. And then finally, when we talk about on track and post-school readiness, we're actually above the state average here. Graduation rate, attendance rate, grade 3 and grade 8 in English language arts and math. No point deductions were given for student engagement. Percentage of students proficient in advanced and reading is identical to the state average, a little bit higher in math. And obviously, as we celebrated early in the year, the WLC is significantly above the state average in all areas, and kudos to them. Here's some information about reading, just generally speaking. This is the key area right here. We are using the 40th percentile, as our target when the rest of the state is using the 68th percentile. So that's going to make our data look better than what it is, but when we compare ourselves outside of the district, that really speaks to that growth rate again that I mentioned. One of the reasons why Wisconsin as a state had a higher rate of improvement than we do as a district. So one of the things that we'll be immediately changing for next year is changing that target to the 68th percentile.
Greg, can I just ask a question? So just on a practical level, so how, and I don't mean to get into the details, but how do you go about doing that? I mean, it's easy to say we're going to go from 40 to 68 on paper, but in terms of programming and or curriculum and or interventions, how do we realistically try to bring those up?
Yeah, it's all about where we're going to set that cut score. So I mentioned the screeners a few moments ago. When we are looking at setting that cut score for which students we're going to intervene upon, those percentiles are going to have to change. So obviously we're going to have to catch more students. And there's a real implication here for our core curriculum, Pat. We've got, more than likely, we're over-identifying, or perhaps, no, we're under-identifying the students who need intervention. And yet we know that if we change those scores and we identify more students in need of intervention, that's going to mean more work. That's going to mean that we're going to have to individualize and group students in a way that's different than what we're doing right now, which, again, speaking very highly and favorably of our principals, is a notion that they've already grabbed onto and begun to, it's the reason that the middle school is considering schedule changes. They know that we need more minutes of instruction in the area of language, arts, and math. It's the reason that the high school is creating a core resource model where students will be able to drop into something much more than a study hall. It will be a study hall that will have an English teacher, a math teacher, a science, and a social study available to tutor and support students all hours of the day. It's one of the reasons that we're looking at a remedial reading class at the, and perhaps remedial isn't the right word, but a supportive reading class at the high school, a supportive math class, math intervention or reading intervention class. So we're already, moving down that road. Yes.
One quick question.
Mhm.
Could you please explain, when you refer to, say, 40th percentile or 68th percentile, what you're referring to?
Sure. So if you were to take the student distribution of scores, and you were to apply a statistical graph to them, it's not going to be the same as the bell curve, but what we're looking at essentially is we're trying to denote where that cutoff score is going to fall.
For
and
the most students?
For intervention, for intervening.
I
Yes.
see. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So rather than setting that cut score at the quartile, at the 25th percentile, we're going to have to move that cut score up.
So
And what
then-
that means is we're going to net more students in that, it's probably more of a scatter plot than anything, but that means that we're going to net more, it is a scatter plot. By moving that cut score up, we're going to have more students below that cut score line, and that means that more students are going to be identified as being in need of intervention.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Math, we've got a similar issue here. No, I'm sorry. In math, we actually had a celebration here. Math concepts and application data collected in grades 2 through 8 indicate a range of students proficient at grade level. 47% grade 5 to 87% out at Chain of Lakes. So The Learning Center and middle school, 78% of the students at or above target in grades 2 through 7. So we've got some celebrations in the area of math. And then finally, 3 grade levels had fewer students at the target in the spring than in the fall. So that's at grades 5, 6, and 8. This slide has a lot of information on it. I'm not going to go through all of the information with you. It's certainly there for you to refer to. The reports that you have at your place have a lot more detailed information. It's a 70-page report, as you can see, so there's a significant amount of detail here. What I will refer to real quickly in the tables and charts in question 4 is the impact of a multi-tiered system of support on special education child count. The district average for students with disabilities is 13.6, where the state average is 13.5. So what that would suggest is that our system overall, from a special education point of view, is working. The lowest is at the Chain of Lakes, 8.7%. The highest was at WLC. Those numbers are a little misleading because, as you all know well, the Chain of Lakes does not have a full complement of special education programs. The largest disability categories were speech and language impairment, speech and language disability, and other health impairment, as you can see in the chart here. And we do have cause to take a look at speech and language impairment. It appears that we've got more students, or a disproportionate number of students identified with speech disability than compares to the state average. Across disability areas, the prevalence rates have stayed relatively stable the past 3 years. Slight increase in autism spectrum disorder, and specific learning disability has decreased slightly. Child find deficiency, this data is somewhat dated. This data suggests that 81.3% of the referrals in 13-14 and about 70% in 14-15 resulted in no identified disability. That means that 70 and 80% of the time, the efforts didn't yield the outcome that we would have expected. We would like those numbers to be flipped. We would like to see about 80% of the time the students who are referred are found eligible for special education services. That means that we're using our time and resources efficiently. And then there were some recommendations specific for our school psychologists in terms of evaluation reports.
Greg, can you
Yeah.
please define what speech and language disability?
Sure. Speech and language impairment can be dysfluency or stuttering. It can also be language development. So students who don't speak until they're maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. There's a whole gamut really to speech and language impairments, everything from selective mutism to stuttering to letter sound development. Many times, for example, teachers will want to refer students who can't say their R's. And yet, developmentally, a student shouldn't really have mastered the R until they're about 8 or 9 years old. But for some teachers, that seems like awfully late compared to their peer group, so they want to make a referral. So that's part of professional development that just needs to happen in that case. But speech and language impairment is essentially a speech student. Yeah. Pardon?
May I
Please.
ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just a little confused. You had listed the 3 different tiers,
Mhm.
and the first tier you said about 80% of our students fall within that, and they're not.
It should fall within that.
Should fall,
Mhm.
and so then they wouldn't necessarily need to be receiving an additional level of intervention.
Correct.
And then you have 15%, level 2 more intervention, and about 5% at the level 3. So to me, that says that why is that cutoff point set at 40%? Why is it not set at 20% if that's in fact what you just said, that 20% ultimately should be the ones receiving intervention?
Sure. I think we're
putting kids into intervention that don't need it.
Yeah, we're crossing from the assessment over into a statistical application of what we found is the result of normative data. So as response to intervention has generated scads of data over time, what they have found is that a successful core curriculum should indicate that 80% of your student population is able to be successful without any level of intervention. Okay, that's different than giving an assessment to a group of, let's say, 30 students and saying that we're going to intervene for anybody at the 20th percent or lower, okay? It doesn't, because you can have students who are in intervention for a very short period of time, and maybe that's something that I didn't make clear. As a matter of fact, I know it is. A multi-tiered system of support is not something that happens in a couple of days or a week. It's something that should be happening over the course of a year. So the way that the system is created is you screen students in the fall, and you're going to see which students fall below that cut score. And for those students that fall below that cut score, you're going to meet as a team. And you're going to bring other educators, other building leaders to the table. Certainly would want to have your school counselor there, perhaps your school social worker. You're going to want to try to ascertain as a team, is this score the product of the fact that Greg is homeless and doesn't have a place to study at night, or is worried about where his next meal is going to come from? Or is it because he's truly further behind than his same age and grade peer group? And so many times a decision won't be made on one single data point, but rather the team will look at multiple data points, and then they'll make an educated decision. Sometimes they'll collect more data and they might reassess the student, but essentially what they're doing is they're trying to determine why Greg isn't performing. And if they believe that it's due to instruction, then the teachers are going to design an intervention. And that intervention has to be scientifically research-based, and it has to be carried out for the prescribed number of weeks. So if, for example, you were going to implement Orton-Gillingham reading approach, is just one example. That might require you to have a child in intervention for 16 weeks to have the desirable outcome of gaining, let's say, 8 months worth of fluency or comprehension on that same assessment. So the student is going to go into that intervention, the teacher is going to apply that intervention, and at the end of that time, that team is going to come back together and they're going to say, was the outcome the outcome that we should have anticipated? We know that we implemented with fidelity, we followed the instructions of the research, so Greg should have made X number of months growth. If he didn't, then we need to try to answer the question why, and then we design a second intervention, and they carry that process out again. And if at the end of that second intervention, Greg still fails to respond to those interventions, then the team is going to come back together and say, okay, could it possibly be that Greg is not responding because of an underlying learning disability? But what they have found statistically is that truly your specific learning disability population should only be 1 to 4%, where in the state of Wisconsin and the nation really, we have been over-identifying to sometimes twice that, 8%, some districts. So that's some of the statistics behind some of the numbers there. There are a lot of moving parts to a multi-tiered system of support, but although I see your question, you can't apply that 68% cutoff or target score to how a population should respond in general. Am I making any sense here?
I'm still learning, so it
Okay.
will take me a while to catch
Yeah.
up. Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, you're welcome. Are there other?
Just a question about, is it possible that our district simply has more students with these needs?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. There's no demographic or statistical anomaly that would account. I mean, unless we had lead in the water for a number of years and that had been documented, there are very few circumstances that would suggest that as the reason.
Or people moving into our district?
Yeah, but
those
people move into all of the districts, so statistically, it would still even out.
Oh, and I meant with the purpose of taking advantage of the services that we can offer here.
Well, that does happen.
Yeah.
It's typically more in the area of cognitive disabilities,
I see.
because county seats typically have more services available post-graduation than other areas of counties, so probably wouldn't impact our learning disability data.
Thank you.
Greg, I think, and I don't mean to skip ahead, and I know, well, you're on in summary, so you probably don't have it in there. I think for me, at least, pulling some of this dialogue together, the graph on page 43, which we've talked about before, is an important graph. That's the trends in student performance. And I think to the degree that if you would like to address kind of what that looks like.
Sure.
And with this portion of it, how we are implementing some of the study halls that are multi-focused or support study halls, and some of the timing or scheduling in this area, that maybe that helps pull some of this together for.
Sure.
It did for me at least.
Sure.
So.
Sure. So what Steve is referring to here is a graph that shows trend data by grade, and it breaks it down by the 25th to 49th, and the 50th to 74th, and then the 75th above. And you can see that there are dips in the data. Those are obviously grade levels that we're targeting, and we obviously want to target in advance of where those data points begin to dive. And again, there's a lot of data on that page, so I'm not sure, if that is helpful or not, but what do you?
Well, I guess for me, we're talking about some of the, and if you just look at the line of the 75th percentile, for example, which is the most dramatic.
Right.
If you could talk a little bit
Sure.
about what
Okay.
that is kind of saying that aligns with, I think, what you have been
Sure.
talking about.
Sure.
You can almost take the other ones out of there and make that as
Okay,
an
so
example.
I understand what you're saying now, Steve. So if you look at that purple dotted line, that represents the 75th percentile and above. And you can see that about at the end of grade 3 or grade 4, that's where our data begins to take a dive. The number of students that are performing at the 75th percentile and above trends steeply downward where it bottoms out at grade 8. And it bottoms out right around the right around 10 there as a standard score. So we go from about 35% of our students are at or above the 75th percentile in grade 4, and then we drop down to 10% of our students when we get to grade 8. So that's a trend line that we want to trend the other way. Obviously, we would even be satisfied with a flat line there in terms of students that are performing at or above the 75th percentile. But each one of those data trend lines are important, and each one of our principals are busy developing plans to address them. So again, there's a lot of very good and hard work that's already taking place in the district and in our buildings. So moving right along here, in summary, Waupaca schools exhibit a high degree of commitment to the vision of public education, high levels of confidence in the leadership, speaks well for the capacity of the school district. We've got significant needs to improve instruction and support students who are struggling with the core curriculum. And then obviously we've got a multi-tiered system of support that we began to work on at the beginning of the year. We continued to work on all year long, and this document really creates a roadmap. And as it says here, it really sets the stage for a bold undertaking. This is a multi-year roadmap for our educators, and will provide information and direction for them at the building level and for us as a district level team for the next couple of years. So there's a lot of data in here. Certainly feel free to look through it. If you have questions or concerns about some of the data, I would invite you to either give me a call, stop in, or send me an email, whatever is your pleasure. Yes?
Question. Could you say what the increase of raising that cutoff is going to have on the amount of time expected that teachers have to put into teaching, and the costs? What would be the cost of
Yeah.
more intervention?
I don't know. The cost will be time. That will be the cost. Our teachers, our educators are already committed to a full day's work. This is really just an example of increasing the expectations. I can't say it any more simply or straightforward than that. Our teachers are going to have to take the students' performance, and it's going to have to increase, because the rest of the state is continuing to increase. We reviewed some data earlier this year that outlines that all of the districts around us are continuing to increase, and we need to be competitive with ourselves and competitive with the rest of the state of Wisconsin. So our families, as you know well, have many options available to them. They can shop for schools, they can shop for school districts. They're not limited by how far they can drive. They can log on, and kids can go to school from anywhere now. So we need to make sure that we've got a plan in place to increase student achievement, and there's no doubt that this is going to be more work.
Do we have the financial resources to provide additional funding to bring on additional staff so that we don't burn out our teachers?
Fair question. I would suggest that that's part of the conversation that we'll be having in the future, is taking a look at the resources that we're currently allocating by discipline, by program, and deciding, are we being efficient with those resources? Or should we be considering reallocating the same amount of resources, or perhaps more resources in the various areas? We know that reading, writing, and arithmetic are the big three. The arts are also important. Extracurricular and athletics are also important. When it comes right down to it, though, and a student is entering the job market, it's the reading, writing, and arithmetic that are going to seal the deal for them. So in terms of a district-wide plan, you can see that this is kind of a mental map or a concept map of our plan for next year. We're really going to focus on developing a culture of learning. And there are a number of different elements to that. Obviously, relationships and rigor, relevance, and relationships. Digital citizenship is something we've been talking about all year. Literacy and math, they're not going away. So in order to achieve this culture of learning, we're going to continue with our multi-tiered system of support. The framework that we began at the beginning of this year. Next year, we'll be bringing professional learning communities online in the district. We're going to continue our discussion around database decision-making and learning-centered grading practices. So fortunately, the new directors of teaching and learning, these are their areas of expertise. They were brought in by design to really foster growth in these areas next year and in the years to come. So I look forward to great things. We kind of asked questions along the way, and I've probably taken up more time than we wanted. So if there are no other questions.
Thank you. Clearly, the takeaway is not criticism of our staff and what they've been doing. It's a takeaway of where can we be better at what we're doing and reallocate some focus. So I think this will be very helpful as we review where that focus really needs to be. With that, we'll move on to school board reports of meetings attended. I'm not sure that anybody attended any specific meetings. Oh, you did, Sandy. I can tell from your hands.
The WASB, the School Board Association's Day at the Capitol earlier in March. It was wonderful. I had never gone to one of those before, but would go again in a flash. We spent a good deal of time hearing from legislators about their views on the budget and budget development process. The WASB staff presented information about priorities from the association's perspective. We heard a forum between the two superintendent of the DPI candidates that was very, very, very interesting. But I would say that the biggest benefit of going was then meeting with other people and our state legislators and getting a chance to sit down with them and talk about what's going on in our district. And Representative Peterson said, specifically, ask your director of finance to call me and tell me what you'd like to see in the budget. So.
More money.
Yeah.
That's easy.
How many were there, do you think?
Hundreds.
Really?
Yes, it was sort of standing room only at the initial sessions that were in a large meeting format.
Mhm.
So it was well attended.
Was the whole thing at the Capitol?
Yes, it was at the Monona
Terrace?
and then we walked over to the Capitol
Mhm.
after lunch.
Wow.
So
awesome.
it was really worthwhile, and it's interesting to me. It's not a real surprise, I guess. I haven't thought about it much. Representative Peterson said that he gets calls from people about things that are going on in our district. And so we talked a little bit about that, and he said he would contact me if he gets information from constituents that he has heard that we might not have. So a group of us met with him. I think there might have been 5 of us at that meeting, and then the meeting with Senator Olson was larger. But it was, I know the WASB staff emphasizes how important and significant it can be to make personal contact with your legislators. And,
Sandy, can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Because we received in our packet for tonight or actually, I guess Greg sent it out last week, the letter from the governor as it pertains to
Mhm.
the amount of money for schools. And we seen and heard a lot about it in the news. Did you get any impression from any of not only our local legislators, but in general, some pushback to that people are saying, well, we're really not going to be giving that amount? Did you get any of that feeling?
Not in that particular form, Pat. There was some discussion about some legislators wanting to start with what they were calling a base budget, which is not starting with the governor's proposal, but starting from scratch. And the Joint Finance Committee has determined that they're going to start with the governor's budget, which I think was seen as an advantage for education.
Yeah.
And so I didn't hear any of them saying education wasn't important. There was some discussion about the transportation budget and the amount of money needed to support transportation.
Okay.
But
Good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings? Is there any?
Well, we've got the organizational meeting at 7 a.m. on April 25th. May 9th will be our regular scheduled board meeting at 5:45, unless, of course, at the organizational meeting, you decide to change the time of the regular scheduled meetings. May 17th is the WASB Spring Academy Workshop, and then, of course, there are always several webinars available throughout the year.
Brings us to the school calendar.
Yes, please. So, would you like me to jump right in?
Yes, I would.
Inclement weather makeup days. You can see that there is a table that outlines the required number of hours as well as the actual number of hours the district realized. And those numbers have been adjusted for professional development days, for early release, as well as snow days. You can see that we are within 10 hours at grades 9 through 12 in terms of flexibility. So if we would have had one more snow day, we would have been pretty thin in terms of the number of hours. As it stands, however, all levels have sufficient hours of instruction, which is a recent change. We're no longer required to adhere by a number of days. It is now only an hour requirement. Couple of considerations as we consider a recommendation for makeup days. Real quickly, some employee groups are paid for the day even if school is canceled, for example, our teachers. Some employee groups lose a day's pay if school is canceled, for example, some of our support staff. Some employee groups will be required to make up the day later, their number of days contract in a year. And past practice has required some years all days to be made up, but in the more recent past, it's only been partial days that have been made up. And then finally, many families do begin to or plan to begin their summer vacations according to the school calendar. So even if we were to make up school days, you're still likely to realize some families who will be absent for family vacation plans. So with that said, we do have a recommendation that there would be no additional student contact days, but rather that we would require one professional development day for teachers and administrators at the conclusion of the regularly scheduled school year.
And that date would be?
That date would be June, I want to say 4th. No. The last day for students would be June 8th. No, June 1st.
In the past, didn't we make the makeup day for teachers at the beginning of the next year? And we used it as professional development?
We have done that.
I think we've done it both ways.
Okay.
Probably, but for sure.
We already have a professional development day scheduled into the calendar for the beginning of next year.
Okay.
So with the work that we want our teachers and building level teams to begin in the area of multi-tiered system of support. We felt that a day at the end of this year would be a good use of time.
Okay.
The administration has made a recommendation, however, would look for a board motion.
I would move to require no additional student contact days and require one professional development day for teachers and administrators at the conclusion of our regularly scheduled 2016-17 school year.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion.
Could we just, for the record, put that date in? I think that'd be
Sure.
important for future, so we know exactly what day we're
Okay, I
talking.
can add
Everybody.
that to the motion, so that would mean that, that would be June 2nd, that would be this additional day.
So your motion is amended. Is a second?
Teachers are
Provided-
already working a half day on June 2nd, because the kids are done on the 1st, but the teachers come in on June 2nd already, I believe. So we would just be moving that half day forward.
Can we work out the date?
Yeah.
And then, that's fine. That's why I brought it up, because I think it's important just to know exactly what day it's.
But can this be contingent that, I mean, it's still a concept.
You could have another snow day.
You could have another snowstorm in April.
Bite your tongue.
Yeah,
I'm
after
sorry, but it is. I mean, we've had blizzards in April, so. this is
Obviously, if we
contingent
have
on-
a requirement for the students, we will address that.
Okay. And let's think positive.
So we have a motion unamended.
Well, with a request that the date be entered once it's determined.
So would this mean then that they have a full day after the students leave and then a half day?
Correct. And the half day is typically the end of the year breakfast and kind of checkout for teachers.
So then, when you send out notification to the staff, you can say that, in essence,
Correct.
that, the date is going to be X for the in-service, and then followed by a half-day workday.
Correct.
So the half day would be the 3rd.
I think the 3rd is a Saturday.
Okay.
Might get a little pushback on that one.
Right.
So the half day would be the 5th.
Would be the following Monday.
That's not going to be good.
That's the way it works out. Many districts are in school that full week.
There is a motion and second, further discussion. You don't have to bite your tongue now, that was just about snow.
I would just go for it, make up a half day and not bring them back on Monday. I think that is crazy.
Okay. Other
But,
discussion?
I mean,
We've got a principal here tonight. I think my question, and I don't know the culture, how much, and perhaps Pat would be able to speak to this, how much work will we get done after the breakfast if we know that that's got to be professional development time and checkout time?
Well, there wouldn't be too much. The question becomes, I mean, it happens, unfortunately, it just happens to fall at a kind of a bad time in the week.
Right.
If it had been Thursday, Friday, rather than
Right.
Friday, Saturday, it would be a no-brainer situation. The question that always comes, and I think Betty is posing, is how much productivity would we get for students or staff to come in from 8 until 11 the next Monday?
Yeah, and that's exactly, my question is, if it's a breakfast and a checkout, it's probably going to be.
On the Monday after?
Right.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that would virtually take up the entire time.
Right.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought you were referring to that having the Friday, still have the breakfast on the Friday, but you push that back to the Monday as well.
Yeah, you'd have to.
You'd have to.
If you were going to have any semblance of professional development day.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, me personally, it would never bother me, because I always waited till we had the final calendar before I would think about the summer months. And I think most people do that. And if you put all of the things that happen on that Monday, I mean, at the breakfast on the Monday, yeah, I know what you're saying, Betty, and I know people are gonna ask, but I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. I think it just happened this year. I think the fact that it's gonna forgo at least one day anyway, or 2 snow days,
I'll
is
be
still
grateful
pretty
for
decent.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
I just
I know,
thought-
it's tough, but.
Is the last day of school a full day? Sometimes it's a half day
It's a half day. Or the last day of school,
for the kids.
I believe that is a full day, is it
Okay.
not?
Because sometimes that's half. and-
Yeah, I don't know either, but,
Additional discussion?
you know, Chad, what do you think?
In terms of productivity, I think the full day would probably be more prudent than just having teachers do a half day of the breakfast and check out and a half day professional development. We have plenty to work on with the MTSS audits,
So that Friday, you're saying, would be fine just for a full day of,
Yeah.
and then do the Monday?
in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And you will send the appropriate notifications out so people can
Yes.
plan accordingly. Okay, and we move on to the Finance Committee.
Want that, or shall I?
You.
Okay. I want to, first of all, thank Steve and Mr. Hyatt for meeting with me prior to this meeting, so I could make sure as new treasurer and full board member that I understood and could give a report. So the first agenda item is roof bids approval, and Mr. Hyatt, during the meeting, noted that the district inspects and rates its roofs annually so that repair and replacement can be scheduled in intervals as it's needed, rather than us having a huge expense in specific years. So we can build those expenses into budgets over a number of years rather than in a single. And then he presented bids for the roof work needed for this year, which are for sections 3, 7, and 8 of the WLC roof. And overall, the project is coming $302 under the budget that was originally proposed. And so the Finance Committee recommends, and I so move, that the board accept the low bids results for the WLC roof sections 3, 7, and 8, which is Roofers Mart for materials at $177,760, and Pioneer Roofing for labor at $252,938.
Okay, motion coming from committee. I do not need a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
We also reviewed the 2015-16 audited financial statements, and the audit results were presented by Mr. Hyatt. I think that the big takeaway from the audit is that the district is in good, sound financial condition. We came within 1.78% of a balanced budget, which is fabulous, and ended with $430,000 more in revenue than we had in expenses, and this money becomes part of our general fund balance. There wasn't any action taken by the committee at this time, but certainly wonderful results, and congratulations to everyone.
Our thanks to not only the oversight of the committee, but also our business manager.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, you too.
Thanks.
There is a state trust fund loan application that was a big part of our discussion. Let me find my sheet on that. And this is related to the concept of our having an athletic complex at the high school. And we need to take some action now because of the condition of our football playing field at Habercorn. And of course, we've talked about the different options available to us, one of which would be doing a certain level of repair work, and we've gotten costs associated with that that don't include the field itself, as I understand it. So Mr. Hyatt reported on the community discussions around the proposed athletic field complex, and he noted that we've had 2 community listening sessions and that we've received an overall positive response to this idea. He reported on the funding options for the athletic complex. The project cost is estimated to be approximately $2.3 million. And as you recall, at the prior board meeting, we were talking about, what are the options for the funds? The option that we were talking about included a level of support from the community in addition to district funds that we already have in hand, and perhaps the sale of buildings within our district. And the district, I would say, is still committed to ensuring that the project has little or no tax implications for our community. It still would be our intent to use current district funds to fund half of the project and then raise the other half through the sale of district properties or securing donations. But it has become clear, I think, over the past month or so, that given the large amount of money that we want to raise, we're going to need a period of time to accomplish this. And so Mr. Hyatt presented the board with financial options that would allow us to make a decision and move ahead with the athletic complex if that's what we want to do, and still maintain little to no impact on our tax base. So we could use district funds to cover approximately $951,000 of the cost. We utilize money currently in Fund 49 and in Fund 41, which were designated for capital expansion projects. We could use the $430,000 generated by the change in equity in 15-16 that we just talked about with our audited financials. And we could use the line item for maintenance, which has typically been $250,000 in our 17-18 budget. Then, to cover the majority of the rest, we could also apply for a state trust fund loan for $1 million. And Mr. Hyatt, this would allow the majority of the complex to be completed. There would be some things that probably would be delayed until more funds were raised. A concession stand would be an example of that. But it would allow for the project to be completed and ready for athletic season this fall if we wanted to do that. Ms. Carol Worth, the president of Wisconsin Public Finance and the district's financial consultant, explained the state trust fund program to us, what it is and how it works. We noted that the loan, if we took out a loan, it has a 5-year payback period with no prepayment penalty. And as we raised money then through the sale of property or through fundraisers, we could pay the loan off with no penalty. So the Finance Committee is recommending, and I so move, that the board apply for a loan with the State Trust Fund Loan Program. Now, this wouldn't bind us to accepting a loan. It would simply allow us to lock in the interest rates, which are currently pretty low, and reserve the money. And if the board decides to move ahead with the athletic complex project, we would then have secured a loan in time for summer construction. So that's the motion and the thinking behind the motion.
I think a point of clarification on some of that, because I've gotten some feedback from some individuals, is that it's not only to have the funds available and look for finance or look for the contributions going forward. There will be a number of contributions, we suspect, that would be predicated on their ability to spread that donation over a period of time. For example, a business may say, I will be willing to give $50,000, but I have to be able to do that over 5 years. So this type of a, for lack of other term, a line of credit, if you will, would allow that to occur. It's not that we would necessarily be looking to expand the fundraising time over a period of 5 years. It's in part to accommodate that kind of a structure for businesses that may need to spread their donations out over a period. So, other questions?
Is it the recommendation of the Finance Committee that we enter into this loan agreement pending the final decision to move forward on the complex?
This would simply be an application for.
An application for.
And at some point, if we decided to move ahead with the complex, then we could sign on the dotted line and.
Funds would be available.
And then.
It's basically reserving a spot.
Reserving a spot.
Once this application is sent in, we're locked in until we say no.
Correct.
And then those monies would be freed up for someone else if we were to say no.
Okay.
So it locks in the rate and it locks in the amount.
Fine. So when we get together in a month's time in May, we would know, of course, that everything has already, preliminarily, and then because of the timing of the project, we would make a decision in May to move forward, and then the project could get started right at the conclusion of the school year. Is that your
I think
thinking?
that would be the timeline. We need
Yes.
time to apply for this, so we have it in place, should we determine that we want to
Okay,
use it.
fine, thank you.
And there's no cost with this application, is that correct? Yes.
That's correct. That's not in my notes.
Good. Other discussion? Okay. It is within the board's authority to enter into or make this application. It is not something that would require referendum. So at this point, there is a motion from the Finance Committee coming from the committee. It does not require a second, but it will ask for any additional questions or discussion. There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda are the PTG playgrounds, and actually it's middle school playgrounds as well, I believe. And the Finance Committee heard playground proposals from both the WLC and the middle school. The combined proposals are requesting a loan from the district essentially, totaling $83,240 so that these projects could be accomplished this summer. And the proposal from the PTGs is that they would repay the loans to pay for the equipment over a period of years. The WLC was asking for $43,240 to be repaid over the next 5 years, and the middle school for a $40,000 loan to be repaid over the next 10 years. This is less than the actual cost of the playground equipment, but they do have funds in hand. So Mr. Hyatt noted that there's no money budgeted for these projects in the current fiscal year, so he was hoping it would be budgeted, built into the 2017-18 budget. The Finance Committee asked administration to work with the PTGs to get additional quotes on the projects and to bring the request back for consideration of the full board. We didn't take any action or make recommendations. I do have some thoughts and comments, but I don't know if this is the appropriate time to make those.
Well, while you're thinking, I'll just ask a question based upon your notes, and I apologize for not being at that meeting, but it says we were hoping, they were hoping, meaning the people promoting, to have these projects completed by the end of this school year.
Yes.
What is the timeline as you understand it?
Well, if we were to do this as a 17-18 project, and there is one of the entities that's supplying it offered a 20% discount if we lock in, and I know we were going to look into this saying, to find out if that 20% would still be available if we said we want to do this project, but we can't start it till July 1st. But it would be possible to finish those projects in time for the start of the next school year, if we make a decision to go ahead with this.
Based on what has been done in the past with some playground equipment, they were projecting that upon delivery of the equipment itself, that functionally they could do it in a weekend.
With
With a lot of, pardon?
With a lot of volunteers.
Yeah, with a lot of volunteer.
Okay.
We did ask
work.
for a quote from a
Right.
second distributor.
Yes, not for
Playground.
doing the land work.
Right, but for the equipment itself.
No, and I don't know whether those have
Yeah,
come.
we have
in.
not received those to date.
Okay.
So
But my,
are-
my own, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so are we going to look at this in terms of maybe a final decision on it, if you will, at the next meeting? So it's informational tonight, or?
Well,
I think we need to do it tonight.
to decide whether we want to agree to the concept of giving a loan, and at this point, it might be
Oh,
appropriate
okay.
for me to
Yeah.
make my comments, which are that I really do feel as if playground equipment is a district responsibility. And while I want to accept money that people have donated to us or have offered for this purpose, my preference would be for us to make a commitment to either paying the rest of it ourselves out of our budgets, or at least offering a to match it, so that they don't have to raise money for any more than half
You mean the PTG?
of the PTGs. So, for consideration, that, I mean, you could still say, let's go ahead with the projects. As presented, the PTGs are offering to repay the loans, and my thought is that I think the district should be paying more. Yes?
Sam, do you actually know the exact dollars that they're requested? Because I've been through this many times, and in my mind, I don't have the exact dollars. I've gone through everything, and it never seems to come out.
Oh, all right. According to the notes that I extracted from the minutes, the WLC PTG is asking for $43,240. And again, they have money in hand,
Did you say 43 or 53?
43.
Well, your notes say 53 here.
That's the total cost?
That's the
Oh,
total
that's the total
cost.
cost.
And
But
they're,
Okay. I got it, okay.
and the middle school is requesting 40,000. So they're saying that for the total cost, they have enough money to fund, right now, in hand, enough to fund everything except the 40. So it's a
Then-
total of 83,240 between the two of them.
But then there's Fultz Brothers, and there's also Phase 2. So in other words, I don't know if anybody really knows exactly what we're talking about, and that's what I really want to know.
You just look.
I think I could add clarity to the Fox Brothers one. I think it was back on the finance meeting, the Waupaca Middle School playground. I believe the prep site of Fox Brothers is included right in that document. But that gets you to the phase one, which you're speaking to. The phase one is 54,412, I believe. And I'm not clear on whether the board is, would be phase one, phase two, where that recommendation is going.
And the Phase 2 was so that they could get the discount on all the equipment, right?
Right. But I believe that's why we asked for a second bid, to just see how competitive it is.
Okay, in that, there seemed to be, number one, we don't have a second bid at this point in time. Not to say that the bid that they've received is not a solid bid, but we would like to arguably confirm that if district monies are going to be involved.
Well, late this afternoon, they gave me these piles of documents. I haven't deciphered them, quite frankly. But from the narrative, at least, I haven't looked through all the individual different bids. But from the narrative alone, it looks like Lee is the low bid, but I cannot say to you right now, I haven't verified it, that's what I'm saying to you.
And Lee is who we're going, the original quote?
That would be the original.
Okay. if I can ask the committee, with your recommendation that we table this until we can confirm what information has been received, and we can revisit it. I realize that time is not necessarily on the side of ordering. We could potentially call a special meeting to get together to discuss this further once we have all the information from the competitive bids and clarification on phase 2.
Yep. That seems reasonable to me.
Okay.
Do you know when we'd have to get back together again?
Honestly, I believe you could do this as the next May board meeting.
I
It looks
believe
like
I
they'll
saw.
hold that 20%, and they'll allow that into the next year's budget. That's the way I see this, so.
Okay.
Well, is it possible to put it on the agenda for the organizational meeting? That comes up even before.
Mhm.
I don't know that we're restricted on that, but maybe we are, I don't know.
I don't think we're restricted as long as we
We
get the
can.
posting out.
I mean, if you have the
Yeah.
information is all I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
Why don't we, if we could, why don't we table it, let Mr. Hayek go through the reams of paper that he's received, and we can determine when we best schedule it.
Sure.
Whether it's an extension through posting of the organizational meeting, the next board meeting, or a special meeting as might be required.
It's a good idea.
Okay.
I believe the quote was good until mid-May, if I read correctly.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Sandy, just as a final comment, I agree with you in terms of your idea of cost sharing, for whatever it's worth. We'll find out.
Might be worth 40,000.
Might be worth 40,000. Maybe not.
Okay, anything else from the Finance Committee?
We just had a committee, a couple of other items. One was that Mr. Hayek reviewed and explained the new financial, the addition to the treasurer's report that has visuals, budget to date, information, and charts. And there was no action taken on that during the committee meeting, just appreciation for them expressed. And then there was a review. Mr. Hayek gave a overview of what the impact, if the governor's budget proposal were to be implemented as it has been presented, what the impact would be for the district of Waupaca. And it would give the district, we're estimating approximately $425,000 in 2017-18 and $433,500 in 18-19. And then there is a recommendation for general equalization aid increase of $72.75 million for 18-19 that would be distributed among and across the 424 school districts within the state. And as part of the discussion, the state, and we did note that the state's budget is still in the proposal stage. It's not in its final stage. And then Mr. Nean noted that the district will be, as always, working to ensure that the district's own budget allocations align with our goals and priorities, which has been part of tonight's discussion. And that there's a review of the allocations by discipline that's part of this process. And that is the end of the Finance Committee report.
Very
It was a
comprehensive,
long- it
thank
was a
you
big
very
meeting.
much. Okay. We'll follow that with school visits. Does anybody have a visit that they would like to report on this evening?
I went over to the high school and see Chuck Peters. It's the alternative school, and it was extremely quiet. I've never been in that room when it's been that quiet, but everybody was working hard. And so Mr. Peters and I had a chance to sit down and just talk a little bit. And it was enjoyable, but there was a lot of kids in there, and they were working hard. And then I went in and saw different teachers, Bill Krosberg, Dave Larson, and Mr. Lehman, and I had an enjoyable visit at the high school.
I'll follow up because I went to the high school too. I went over on the 31st of March when We had our foreign exchange students visiting from other schools that were in the school, so I went over to help a little bit with that. I also visited with Nancy Cummings in her freshman English class because several of the foreign exchange students came in as a panel. I wanted to see, I talked to her after the students were in there to see how that went. She was real pleased with it. She thought the students got a lot out of it. Her students asked a lot of good questions, and it was a real good give and take, and she was real happy to do that. I also had a chance, and one of the other reasons I went over to the high school, I wanted to meet with Mr. Devine, who is the interim high school teacher, who I had not met before. And so I made a point of talking with him for quite a long time, and a delightful person, if you haven't already, an opportunity to meet.
Interim high school teacher?
Pardon?
Principal.
Principal, did I say
Okay,
teacher?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Principal, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Our interim principal.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had a real nice chat for quite a long time, actually, and I'm very impressed with what his assessments already, even though he's only been there a short time. And I do believe a week from yesterday, he'll be there full-time, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so starting. But he's been there a number of days already, I don't know how many days, but a lot of people knew him already, and he knew a lot of the staff. And I had I talked to several staff members, as Steve did, and I asked them a little bit of their assessment, and they seemed to feel very comfortable with him in the building. One comment by one of the teachers was, are you sure we couldn't hire him full-time? I thought, well, if he was 30 years younger, maybe he'd be interested. But no, but they real positive comments, him. And I'm going to just give a plug because I also went to the middle school Lion King production, which was wonderful. And Ms. Laurel Leader and Shana Rogney specifically did a great job in that production. Lots of kids involved, which was very impressive. So, had a good time.
Good.
Well, I did the Learning Center and made a short visit through the hallways and the classrooms and things, but spent the most time, I did Read Across America for Representative Board to read. Actually, I told stories that night. But it was a wonderful evening, and my kudos to the parent-teacher group at the WLC because they did a wonderful job of organizing. I know Liz Kamir is instrumental in it and getting all the readers and tellers and whatever. There were math games going on. There was a book fair going on. I've never seen such a pile of pizza boxes before. I think they had the largest number of families and students involved that they've ever had. And the variety of readers was incredible. There were police dogs and drug dogs and doctors and superintendents and farmers with lambs and chickens and things. Kind of tough competition. But it was a great evening, and I was just impressed at how many families turned out. It's just a great event. So it was wonderful.
Agreed.
I don't have a school visit that I'm going to report on per se. Mr. Nean and I did go over to Fox Valley Tech for a meeting of administrators and board presidents. It was the Fox Valley Tech over in Appleton. We spent time in the egg department there. Very interesting. We got a tour of the facility. The individual that was, we were broken into several groups, and the individual that was leading our group throughout the complex at the end had noticed Waupaca on my badge and immediately made comment about our egg program here, and Ms. Erb and Ms. Lehman, and had nothing but positive things to say, has known them both for quite a number of years, but hastened me not to say too much to them because they were, or at least Ms. Erb, because I figured her ego was, or her confidence was high enough, I think is the way he put it. But anyway, that was very enjoyable. I would also like to extend appreciation to Mr. Felt and others on the staff that helped pull together the post-prom, junior prom function this year. The prom itself was incredibly well attended by both students and the public. I've never seen that large of a public turnout for the the prom itself and the Grand March. Mr. Neon did not march, although he was...
I did not, no.
Although he
Poised
was
to
there.
do so.
Yes, he was dressed appropriately. But anyway, from what I understand, there were no incidents afterwards from the post-prom, and that just speaks well of how well they do there. I haven't gotten an actual attendance number as to what percentage of the junior class was in attendance, but it was, I would have to say, by the length of the Grand March, extremely high percentage. And an additional, I believe, 15 students went on to post-prom that did not attend the prom itself. So appreciation to those that make that post-prom a safe environment for our students. And again, it appears that that was successfully done, so my thanks to them, our thanks to them, not mine specifically. With that, we can move on to the administrator section.
Okay, the first item is a annual item. It's our CISA 5 contract. The majority of this contract boils down to the number of slots that we purchase with Waupaca County Charter School over in Waupaca at $18,000 a slot. $72,000 of the contract is devoted to those charter school slots. Just as a quick aside, they will be dissolving their charter status over the next couple of months. There is a rule on the books that says that any charter status school must be open for public enrollment. And so it's not really a charter school that is designed for enrollment from students across the state. It's a very specialized program for our at-risk population, and so it will have no impact on either A, our cost, or B, our ability to access the program. It will purely be in name only, so just a small aside there. Other services in the contract include a small and regular fee for audiology service access, assistive technology access, the PI 34 consortium, some school improvement services, and then there is a membership that's based on enrollment as well. And that brings us to the total of $88,553.92 for the 17-18 school year.
And do we need to put that in the form of a motion?
Okay.
Yes.
According to the figures on the next 2 pages, when we look at it, it says $88,814.30. So I'm questioning which figures are right.
I would defer to Ms. Marcon, who is in northern Arizona right now. So I would say that we can approve the contract, and we will certainly make sure that the amount is correct. Your call.
So in other words, you're just wondering about the discrepancy?
Well, yeah, this says 88,553.92, but looking at these 2 sheets that follow,
It says
You are correct.
88,814.
yeah. So I really don't know, but I just,
Yeah,
The other-
school improvement services itself is a difference of 150, I believe. I'd have to go back and calculate it. That was just a quick glance. In the attachment from CISA 5, the school improvement services is indicated as 8,300. In the summary above that, we're showing 8,150. And I'd have to go back and forth to reconcile the others, but that's...
yeah, I mean, I put the figures together too, and it just,
Yeah.
it came up to 88,814.30. Does
It's
this
not-
have to be approved tonight?
It does not. That was just, my comment was going to be, it can be held over until next month.
Good.
I would make a motion, we hold it over till we know what the actual figures are.
We will table it.
I'll second.
Again, we actually don't need a motion.
Oh.
The motion was not made
Okay,
to
just to
approve
table.
it, so
Okay,
we'll
that's
just
good.
table it.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is Catalpa Health School-Based Mental Health Proposal. So you may recall that this school year was the first year that we have partnered with a mental health provider, and we have New Directions Counseling from Stevens Point. We have a therapist who is available to our students across the district. What we have realized, and it's not dissimilar to the experiences of other districts, is that the program is very slow to begin. And the growth of the program is directly related to the funding streams available to our students and parents. So New Directions requires a specific HMO, and the HMO is actually not an HMO that is very prevalent to this area. So as we look at how to provide mental health services to our student population, Catalpa Health is a healthcare provider that's very familiar to this area and is based out of the Fox Valley. They have started a program a number of years ago where school districts can essentially subsidize mental health services to students. So within this memorandum of understanding, the program would look like this. For a cost of $7,500 per year, the district can have a mental health provider in a building 1 day a week. What that $7,500 will do for the district and for our students is it will allow unfettered access to any student who needs mental health support. If a student has a funding stream, say in the form of private pay insurance or through Medicare, then they will bill that private pay, or if a family is able to pay out-of-pocket costs as well. But if the child or family does not have a funding stream, or they're still working through that funding mechanism, that's where that subsidy will kick in, and the student and family will be able to access up to 6 sessions worth of mental health therapy without any funding barrier. So what Ms. Marcon and I are recommending is that the district commit to 2 days per week, and the campus, the WLC middle school campus would share 1 day a week, and the high school would have the other day of week. And we believe that with that type of structure, we'll be able to overcome that funding barrier that many of our students with mental health needs experience. So I should also mention that that's $7,500 subsidy is the maximum. If Catalpa Health realizes more funding or fundable students than what their average experience is, that number will only go down. It will not go up from there. So we believe that this proposal is definitely a step in the right direction for our students who need the support and services, but don't, either they themselves or their parents don't have the ability to navigate the red tape associated with it.
2 questions for you. You had mentioned $7,500 per year. The memo actually says $7,500 per day. I just want to make sure that it's...
I know that there was a typo in there, and I thought that we had corrected that.
The typo that was corrected was at the bottom under the recommendation.
Yeah.
I think
it's
she's talking about
7,500.
something
Okay.
else
Yeah.
further up on that page that I was not told about.
What page are you on?
it's the second page.
Second page of Maureen's memo. I think she's
It's
talking
under
about
the
under the
summary
summary
section.
where it says.
Yeah.
2 days per week on-site counseling, $7,500 per day.
Yeah,
I think that's a matter of how you read that.
Is it? Yeah.
7,500 for one day, 7,500 for a second day, not
Okay.
per day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah, that makes
it's-
sense.
It's
Okay.
challenging wording.
Yes.
I agree with you.
Thank you for saying that.
It's an annual cost.
The typo that was corrected is at the bottom of that same page.
So my other
It's-
question is, have organizations that already provide services that are locally based, like Theta Care Behavioral Health or Ministry, have they been approached in terms of providing services?
Yes, not every organization is willing to extend this type of a partnership. There are actually there's a greater need than there are therapists.
Mhm.
So the timing of entering into this type of agreement is such that if the board embraces this partnership, this will be the triggering event for Catalpa to hire another therapist. Right now, there's a shortage of therapists, marriage and family therapists. So that's speaks to the timing of this, but many of the local partners, they have more business than what they have therapists.
Mhm.
So for them to extend into the school would not be a profitable venture.
Greg, you mentioned the therapist, family, and what the other word you use for therapist. Is that sort of what the focus is here, as opposed to like AODA counseling?
Yeah, it's an MFT, or marriage family therapy license.
Okay.
But it's an umbrella license, so they specialize in AODA, family dysfunction. I mean,
Okay.
there are a number of different specialty areas, but it falls under
So that
MFT.
those students who may need some of that would also be able to see them?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, my other question was, according to the minutes or the notes, that when talking about New Directions, who are pulling out, it said our school estimated we had a minimum of 50 students that we would be able to. Catalpa is going to be able to handle that number? I mean, you
Yes.
mentioned they're going to hire somebody, but they know there'll be a minimum of 50 at least?
Yeah, we had, I don't recall if it was 50 students or upwards of 80 students this year that would have been referred, or that
Okay.
were referred. I don't think we had any that were able to successfully navigate the funding stream.
So when
So-
we start in the fall, it'll really be the beginning, even though we have
Right.
New Directions?
Correct.
Okay. Well, good, I'm glad we need to
Would you
get
like a
started.
motion? Approve the
Please.
contract? I would move that we approve this agreement with Catalpa for the 2017-18 school year.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Is there any discussion? I will ask what liabilities this could present to the district.
None.
Okay.
Will they be using those outside counselors, the same facilities as our counseling staff generally uses?
Yeah, it'll likely be the same area that the New Directions counselor we're using.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the cost is gonna be 15,000 per year, no more than that?
correct.
Other questions or discussion? I'll call the question, then we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
So the next item is summer school rate for or summer school cost analysis and teacher hourly payment. We have been having an ongoing conversation among our administration over the last several months about changing the face of summer school. Summer school has traditionally, not only in this district, but in many districts, been viewed as a punishment. If you don't do well during the regular school year, you'll have to go to summer school. And when you put it in that type of a context, it's very punitive in nature. We believe that summer school should be an opportunity for students, and we should have opportunities for enrichment as well as opportunities for remediation. So yes, it can be a tool that our struggling learners take advantage of to prevent that summer slide, but we also believe, particularly at the high school, that there's a real opportunity here for our students to open up time in their normal calendar school year schedule that would have otherwise been consumed by some of the required coursework. So, for example, communications class, Phy-Ed class, health class, some of those required courses that either are less desirable for our high school students or perhaps have a high number of students or they have an increased volume. We believe that by offering that regular curriculum during the summertime, our students will be able to engage in more advanced placement courses. They'll be able to take higher interest courses or follow elective opportunities during the regular year, or just generally open up their schedule and attain the number of credits that they need to in order to graduate. Originally, when presented with the new philosophy of summer school, we had a very slow start by our high school staff to want to be able to teach summer courses. Shortly before break, there was a staff meeting, and I got in front of the high school staff and explained that this was not going to be a mechanism to reduce FTE. There was a misperception that perhaps that might be the outcome. That is not the intention here. We don't need to reduce FTE to balance our budget. So after that myth was dispelled, the next day, Mr. Ersbaumer, who is our summer school coordinator, immediately received a number of emails with interested high school teachers who are now considering teaching some high school courses during the summer. However, we anticipate that there still may be a day in the future when we don't have enough instructors to be able to meet the demand of our students. So past practice, and it's not codified anywhere in policy, past practice has been that any non-district teacher who is hired for summer school teaching is paid the hourly equivalent of our base rate. That translates to about $25 an hour. $25 an hour is really the average summer school rate for most of central Wisconsin. So we believe that if we were to offer an hourly rate that exceeds that $25 an hour, but is still less than what the cap is for our regular district employees, which for this summer is $37.50, we'll be able to attract highly qualified and licensed teachers to teach the courses here over the summertime that perhaps some of our teachers don't want to teach. So what we're proposing in this memo is that non-district employees would be eligible for an hourly rate no greater than $32.50 an hour, and that we would verify their hourly rate with them before assigning the hourly rate. So in other words, if we had a student, or a teacher rather, who is making, let's say they're making $42,000 a year, well, that hourly rate is going to be higher than our base rate, which is based off of approximately $35,000 a year. We would verify what they are being paid in the neighboring district before we would offer them an hourly rate in excess of our historical $25 an hour. And that rate would not ever exceed that $32.50 an hour, which is still $5 less than the ceiling for our district employees currently at $37.50 an hour. So that's the proposal, and again, this is really designed to enhance and really recreate our summer school offering. I will also forecast that in order to offer high school transcripted credit courses, there are a required number of hours. I believe for a half a credit, we need to offer 68 or 62 hours. I don't recall off the top of my head, but there are a defined number of hours of instruction that a student has to have in order to get that half credit or that quarter credit. I think it's 40 hours for a quarter credit, 68 for a half credit. So currently, with our summer school timeline, we don't have enough time to be able to offer that half credit. So I would, forecast that in the future, our summer school time frame is probably going to need to be stretched in order for our students to really realize the full advantage there.
Just for high school or for all grades?
I would suggest that it would make sense to do it for all grades, and certainly parents, summer school is not required.
Mm-hmm.
So if parents decide that, they don't want to attend or send their child to summer school, certainly that's their decision. But if we create the opportunity, chances are more often than not, they're going to take advantage of that opportunity.
So would there be a longer first session and no second session?
I'm really I'm gonna defer that discussion to Mr. Erzbaumer and the staff members who kind of traditionally get involved with summer school, because I have a sense that they will know best. Is it better to start earlier or go later? I know from an academic achievement and readiness point of view, the closer we drag summer school out to the beginning of the school year, the better off the start to the school year is going to be for those students who participate in summer school. So there's some conversation there, but I wouldn't make that decision now.
I have a 6-year-old at WLC, and I thought that the choices for summer school were quite varied and a lot of fun things in there. And she's looking forward to going to that. I'm wondering, for some of those sort of funner activities, do we need to have certified teachers with degrees teaching those, or can we have teaching assistants stepping up at a lower pay rate perhaps, and help us do it on a less expensive basis for some of those?
Yeah, and certainly I would ask Mr. Hayek to jump in here. If we're going to receive reimbursement for summer FTE, which is a part of our budget process, they would need to be certified teachers. So there are some instances in which we partner with Parks and Rec, for example, but again, if we're going to recoup those FTE, and receive reimbursement, then they have to be licensed teachers.
And just as another comment, one of the really nice things about summer school is that it reinforces and strengthens relationships between our teaching staff and the students, and I think that's a really valuable aspect of it, apart from that it's a good investment. That it's a good investment.
I'm just also thinking in terms of for the younger children. Many of their parents may be working full-time, and I would love to see the ability for us to offer summer school that would extend throughout the day, so that dual-working parents could actually work all day as opposed to just a half day. Hopefully they'd have to pick up the child at arranged daycare or something like that. So if there was a way that using teaching assistants or something like that would allow us to expand the courses, I guess is the direction I was hoping that
Excuse me, I think Mr. Dean sort of alluded to that. I think we're going to start looking at a lot more possibilities in the summertime than we have in the past. And I don't know if you're aware, and I was just going to bring this up anyway, but one of the components that we've added to our summer school is we have received grants through the federal government for food sources, for lunches and breakfast. And that's been really good for our programming because we can offer those to our students, and their parents don't have to worry if they're ever going to get any food while they're there. And even though some of them are only there a few hours, it's still an offering that we are able to do. And I was gonna mention it only because if we continue to expand at the high school, we would want to do the same thing there too, I assume.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there aren't that many classes going on at the high school, quite frankly, it's a pretty small number compared to the other buildings, but, you know, someday, if I remember right from our grant proposal or through the federal, there's no limit on the number of students in the summer that we might have in our program. If we have 200, great, if we have 400, you know, the money will be there because it's based on a per capita, I think, or something along that line. So we have no ceiling on that, which is great.
Does our,
The food portion I'm talking about. So,
and does, our summer school doesn't involve busing, right? Correct.
I think it does.
It does now, but one of the mechanisms that speak to that is our relationship with the city.
Mhm.
So there's a bus pickup after classes are over, and they can get their meal, and they can, if they sign up for city or the Parks and Rec Department, they can be there the rest of the day, and then the parents could come there and pick those students up at the end of the day. So that would give, that we're trying to give at least some opportunity for a full window.
So that's the full day option. And, but it doesn't pick the students up in their home in the morning.
No, it doesn't.
Correct. Does it do childcare? I mean, it doesn't drop them off at the end of the, after lunch to
To,
like Sunny Day or any of
something?
those, does it?
I don't think so.
At this point, no.
Okay.
Steve had a question.
On the recommendation, it says, move approval of an hourly rate not to exceed $32.50 per hour for non-district employees. Should that not say non-district teachers? Because you could get somebody who isn't a teacher, and they, according to this, they would be paid $32.50, or at least the way I read it.
Or they could be capped at $32.50. They wouldn't ever get paid more than that, but
But it doesn't say that, it just says,
not to exceed,
oh, okay, I see what you mean.
yeah.
I just think teachers should be in there.
Certainly.
No?
We could, you can certainly make that amendment or that
The
motion.
motion, you know, could be teachers rather than
Sure,
employees.
clarifies it.
Non-district teachers.
And
That's
then if we,
intent.
if we do start reaching out to, say, some example, artists within the community to teach something, we could address that
Right.
at that time.
That would be funded by matching dollars, is that correct?
If we were to use people outside of the district?
That weren't teachers, and that would.
Means non-certified.
We would not be able to seek reimbursement from this, we wouldn't receive any state aid for that time.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunate, because there's, I'm sure, plenty of artists in the community that would love to interact with the kids, and the kids vice versa.
And what some districts will do is they will partner. They'll bring in a local artist with a licensed art teacher, and the two of them will team teach. And then you get that enrichment piece, but you also have the opportunity for reimbursement.
Are finding enough teachers willing to dedicate that time over their summer? Is that kind of a bottleneck to growing this?
At the high school level it is, which is really the impetus for the recommendation. And that's only because it's part of it's a change. So it's a new philosophy and new approach to summer school, looking at it not just as a punitive measure, but really as an opportunity. And one of the phrases that I really liked from our high school counselors was they referred to it as summer session rather than summer school. So,
For our lower grades, it's not been a problem to get
No.
teachers, has it? They all appreciate the
Mhm.
extra income and the opportunity.
Yeah, in fact, if I recall correctly, there's been more staffing wanting to teach some things than sometimes students filling those. And so I remember they had to kind of share the classes so everybody gets a little bit, but maybe not all of what they like. So that's been a good thing.
It's great. Hope this
Mhm.
program continues to grow.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I think for our lower grades, it's always been looked at as enrichment.
Yeah, it's enrichment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have some comments that I'd like to, at some point, revisit what we're paying our teachers, if they are teaching curriculum-driven courses. An example would be something at the high school that gets credit, but I'm not sure it's appropriate to this particular discussion. May need to be a separate agenda item.
I think based on what was posted for the session, we would have to limit it largely to this because we're looking specifically on the agenda as summer school hourly rate for non-district employees.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that if it could be even added to the organizational meeting. I don't want to load that on, but.
I think, yeah, I think due to the way that the meeting
Yep.
was posted in
Yep.
the agenda, we would not be able to go to that other side of the discussion.
I agree, yeah, that's why so I'm going to move approval of the hourly rate not to exceed $32.50 per hour for non-district teachers.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Carl, I'm going to ask you to introduce here, if you don't mind.
Certainly. The next item on the agenda is teacher substitute daily rate pay, daily pay rate. And basically, you can see the analysis inclusive in your packet has about 11 school districts, and I believe the average of the 11 school districts' daily rate was something like $98 an hour. I'm not looking at it. And ours is at $90 an hour, $90 a day, excuse me, rather than basically $100 a day. So we're just proposing this packet, this substitute pay, just to get up to the average of $100 a day. And then clean up our language a little bit. If you looked at that graphic, just to kind of keep it simple, stupid, so to speak, is basically it's $100 a day. And we didn't change and replace all the other language, $90 / first 25 days, $95, 26 to 50 days. Really a accounting nightmare, quite frankly. You can see a lot of districts don't do that, the majority don't. So just $100 a day. And keep the same long-term rate is really in the language, which is if you work over 10 days in the district and becoming a long-term sub, so to speak, you get paid off the base rate, whatever that base rate would be, and that division would be equating at least this current language for the base pay is $190.82. So basically just some cleanup and get our substitute pay so we can basically retain and attract more substitute teachers. So that is somewhat of we have received phone calls that our teachers' substitute pay is not helping us attract any substitutes we need.
Carl, is it your intention that if we pass this, that this would take effect as of tomorrow, or would it be for next year?
You could go tomorrow. I talked to Colleen payroll. You could go tomorrow, or it's really the board's preference. Tomorrow would be fine with us.
Are we looking for a motion?
Entertain a motion.
Okay,
yes.
I'll make a motion that we increase the substitute pay as presented, starting immediately.
If I may, you're looking actually at the change to code 534.1?
Yes, yes.
As
Add that into
presented?
my, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for adding that into my motion.
Effective immediately. I would second that.
Okay, further discussion?
It's been a long time coming. I think it's really good that we're doing this. This has been a topic of discussion for, I would say, at least 10 years.
Okay.
So I'm happy that we're finally becoming competitive.
Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'm sorry, I
next
gotta get
item,
back to, okay.
The next item, 534.2, is basically cleanup. That's what it is. There's antiquated positions on this code, and so we're just basically stating the facts, just putting the individuals who are actually can be substitutes for support staff. So that's what this is all about.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt the changes for code 534.2 as presented.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would, I don't know why I would, but I would like to have it also immediately.
Oh, yeah, I'll make that as part of my motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And are you doing the last one as well? Or is this shifting back up here?
The next one, I believe, is payment for expenses.
Correct.
Reimbursement for individuals who go to conferences and, or stay overnight as part of their job responsibilities for the district. We currently reimburse at 5, 10, and 15, basically breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're proposing basically a $2 per meal increase for reimbursement, which is, so we would need to change board policy 671.2R to be in compliance with that proposal.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the changes on code 671.2R1 retroactive to the Milwaukee meeting. No.
I'll go with a more current, I'll go with a more current date.
Okay.
Immediately.
Effective after our meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Discussion?
I can't read what it says up there, but on my copy, it says May 1st of 2015 or later. I don't know if it should say May or whatever date of 2017.
It should say effective for expenses incurred April 12th in 2017 or after,
Correct.
or later.
Okay, I don't know what it says up there, but
So pending that change, that's a good catch, Steve.
Yeah, I'll go along with that too.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Eat well. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda.
I just have one real quick question before we call the question here. The position that Mrs. Polubitsky is vacating because she's retiring, and Amy Holterman is moving into that. Was that a voluntary situation? Did she, I mean, Mrs. Amy Holterman asked to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. I assumed that, but I just wanted to make sure.
So
She
will
wasn't
this
assigned.
require us to hire a new fourth grade teacher?
No,
No.
those numbers are down.
Okay. And my next, I have another question too, with Paula Resock. Her letter of resignation said that due to the scheduling changes, change in schedule at the middle school, it wouldn't fit anymore. So what is that about?
As it was explained to me, her teaching assignment would have been from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. next year as a halftime teacher, and she did not find that agreeable. But maybe Mr. Pritzel can.
That's basically the extent of it. I believe she wanted to keep it in an AM assignment, and our new schedule just didn't allow for
So
that.
will we need another halftime teacher then? I mean, is there someone that teaches are there 2 half times, or what are there right now with Spanish?
It's a 1.5, it's a time and a half. We have a full-time FTE Spanish teacher and then another half-time.
So we'll have to find another halftime?
Perhaps. We're having some discussions about, are there some other offerings we can make?
Okay. All right.
I'd move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Take roll call. Betty Mannion?
Yes.
Steve Shambo?
Yes.
Sandy Robinson?
Yes.
Pat Fair?
Aye.
Steve Hackett?
Aye.
Steve Johnson? Yes. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session with a caveat that there be a bio break.
Yes.
So
But what kind of break?
Bio break.
Steve made the motion, I'll second it.
So the motion is to go into closed session in accordance with Wisconsin statute 19.85 (1) for consideration and possible action on a preliminary notice of non-renewal, a review of superintendent contract language, an update on administrative hiring process.
Second?
It's a voice vote here.
We already have a motion
We
and a
have a
second.
second, we have a
I mean,
motion and a second.
I know, I was clarifying what the motion
Oh,
was.
she asked if
Oh,
it's a second.
okay, yes, we do have.
Yeah, I had the second and Stephen the first.
All in favor?
No, we have to go roll call here, remember?
That's true, I'm sorry. Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Pat Fair.
Aye.
Sandy Robinson.
Yes.
Steve
Yes.
Shambo. Eddie
Yes.
Mannion. Steve Johnson, yes. Okay, we will adjourn into closed session in just a couple of moments. We'll let the camera break down.